let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. I want to see you be brave. Show us you're brave.
Wow. Another round of applause for Jennifer Brewer and Kevin Harris. Welcome to This Is My Brave Orlando. We'd like to thank everyone for coming today to witness Orlando shine a light on mental health issues and to end the stigma that surrounds it. I'm Donna Helsel, one of the producers of this show, and I'm so excited that this day is finally here. We know that you will be in awe of the incredible bravery of our cast, like our other producers, Gretchen, Gregg, Marianne, Link, and Rick Helsel and I were. We were all a bit nervous when we started this journey, but when we saw Storytelling Saves Lives across the This Is My Brave website, we knew we wanted to bring this show to Orlando. All of us on the production team have family and friends who live with a mental health diagnosis, and we all have experienced and witnessed the stigma that comes with it. Through the sharing of personal stories, we hope the awareness they provide will bring understanding, compassion, empathy, and a sense of community with one another. We are all connected, and you might find a piece of yourself in some of these stories. Through the eyes and the voice of our cast, we hope that you will see the importance of ending the silence around mental illness. A few thank yous before we get started. First and foremost, we'd like to thank NAMI Greater Orlando for presenting this show and supporting the idea from the very beginning. We'd also like to thank the wonderful sponsors who you see listed on your program, the staff of This Is My Brave for providing us invaluable support, and the talented artists who you see works are displayed in our Be Brave art show, and this amazing cast of brave individuals up here today. We do have a special guest with us today, Jennifer Marshall, the executive director and co-founder of This Is My Brave, and I'd like to ask her to come up and just say a couple words. So, Jennifer.
Thank you, Donna, so much. Thank you all for being here. I'm honored to be here. This Is My Brave is honored that NAMI Greater Orlando has chosen to partner with us in ending the stigma through storytelling. And since we're a storytelling organization, I thought I would start and just share a little bit of the stories behind how we came to be. I myself live with type 1 bipolar disorder. I've been hospitalized 5 times for manic episodes. And back when I first got sick, what helped me was finding brave stories of people who were talking about their illnesses openly, and they were letting me know that it does get better and that you can recover and you can have a great life. And so when I found their stories online, I was inspired to start writing my own story, and I started a blog, and I called it Bipolar Mom Life, because I was a mom and I had bipolar disorder and I wanted people to find me. And I started writing, and I was at a party one night, and I met the woman who would become my co-founder. And she was introduced to me, and she said, "You're bipolar mom." And of course, that's a funny way to, be introduced to someone, but she recognized me from my writing. And we bonded that night over the topic of mental health, and she had been touched by it. Her son was living with severe depression and anxiety, and so we bonded, and I said, I have this idea. I want to do a show where we feature people who are living great lives despite having gone through horrible struggles. And we didn't have a name for it back then, but I said, I need help. And she said, I want to help you. And I pulled her in as my co-founder, and we needed to raise $6,500 to fund our first show. And we put the idea on Kickstarter. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Kickstarter, it's a crowdfunding platform. And we put the idea out, and we asked for backing. And we ended up raising over $10,000 in 31 days because people believed in our idea. And then it was putting the call out for storytellers, as Donna has done here. And we cast the first show with 13 incredible storytellers, and on May 18th, 2014, sold out a 400-seat theater and got rave reviews. And I had been afraid when I first started writing about telling my story openly because of stigma. And the exact opposite happened, when I opened up, that people find themselves in your stories because we're all touched by mental health issues. And they would say, thank you for sharing your story. And so after that first show, our show expanded, and in 2015, we did 6 shows across the country, and in 2016, we did 9 shows across the country, and last year, we did 17 shows across the United States, and 2 of those were in Australia. So this show tonight that you're here this afternoon at is our 36th This Is My Brave show, and so I want you all to know that you're a part of, the community. And if you are moved by what you see tonight and you want to join this movement and help This Is My Brave go to more cities, maybe you have friends and family and you want them to be able to see a show, you can become a Brave champion, and we can tell you more about it at the reception afterwards, or you can go to our website. There's information in the programs as well. But thank you. And as my co-founder Anne-Marie said at our, at the first show, it's like that This Is My Brave is like a pebble that we're putting out into a lake and throwing it out there. And it's going to ripple out, and more people will get to hear the stories. So thank you for being here tonight, and on with the show.
Okay, and a few more things before we get started. Everyone should have received a program when you came in today. Inside, you will find a list of our generous sponsors, the names of our amazing Be Brave artists with a list of their work, as well as some information about our cast members to better acquaint you with each one of them. If you haven't had a chance to read the program before the show, please take it with you. See who we are. Also, at this point, I'd like to ask everyone to take out their cell phones. And I bet you thought I was going to ask you to turn them off. But what I'm going to ask you to do is that I want you to know that we're a very social organization. And we want you to take a lot of pictures and even video clips and share these on your social media networks with the hashtags Live Brave, Storytelling Saves Lives, and Amigo. What you are about to experience defines what it means to live brave. We need your help to tell the world that we're here and that they can learn what it means to live brave too. So share away, but please put your phones on silence for the duration of the show. So we're about to take you on a journey. You will laugh and you will cry. You will be enlightened, inspired, and our hope is that you will leave with a transformed perception of the invisibleness of mental illness, thanks to the bravery of our cast members. Because of this reality, 1 in 5 Americans live with a diagnosable mental health disorder. But because we don't talk about mental illness, often people suffer in silence. This changes today, right here on this stage. We're shining a light on mental illness to show the world that we are your friends, your colleagues, religious leaders, neighbors, your parents, your siblings, your children. We hope that through our storytelling, you will better understand mental illness and will be able to be supportive to those in your life who may experience it. You may also be inspired to share your own story, because it's when we share our stories that we open up the conversation, and storytelling does save lives. So, let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to our first brave performer, Leah Beth Carrier.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for being here today and joining us on the fight to break mental health stigma. Almost a year ago to the day, I tried to take my life and almost succeeded. I should have walked out of that hospital with a new lease on life, ready to thrive. Maybe I did, for a period of time. Yet, somehow, a few months ago, I found myself sitting on the blue patterned couch of my therapist's office, nestled comfortably in the middle of white plush pillows, twirling my ponytail holder around my wrist over and over again until I had successfully zoned out. My therapist looked at me inquisitively as I stared at the sunbeams dancing across the windowsill. She asked me if I was okay. Of course I was okay. I was fine. But that was so far from the truth. The truth was, I had been thinking about life and death, the meaning of my human existence, my excruciating level of hopelessness, and how I so badly wanted to end the pain and ultimately end my life. The truth is, I've thought about that a lot throughout the years. So, when my therapist gave me the homework assignment to write letters to myself that I can read during difficult or hopeless times, I thought, what better letter to write than a reminder to stay? Here it is, my reminder letter to stick around. To the me that needs reminding, I know things haven't been easy lately, and the pain often feels like it's too much to bear. Right now, death seems like a more palatable option than sticking around and hoping that things will get better or become easier. You tell yourself that you're broken, chronic, inherently flawed. Messages that you truly believe define the very core of your being. You can't see past the darkness that encircles you day in and day out. And that coveted light at the end of the tunnel, it's nothing more than an elusive carrot that you are always chasing. You grow weary from fighting a relentless battle with mental illness. Anyone could understand why you'd be exhausted. It makes sense, just like wanting an end to the pain makes sense. Depression, anxiety, an eating disorder, PTSD, they have a way of shrinking your world down into a single solitary room. You exist within the four walls of your bedroom, barely able to make it out of bed. But what you don't realize is that there is a world out there behind those dark, drawn curtains, and it is big and bright and just waiting to be discovered. And although it seems terrifying right now to think about embracing the noise and the chaos and the light, I promise you, it won't always feel so overwhelming. You just have to hold on and stick around long enough to see that for yourself. So stay. Stay when you feel like giving in. Stay when everything in you is screaming for relief. Stay long enough to see the sparks ignite into flames as hope burns within you once again. Stay one more day. Stay to see another person smile, and maybe one day it will be you who smiles. Stay to watch another sunset and breathe deep as you take in the cotton candy hues of the vastness of the sky. Stay a while until you get the chance to make your voice heard. You have so much to say and can be a powerful force if you allow your words to carry. Stay until you cry one more time. You will be reminded that you are human and that being human is messy and painful and occasionally even beautiful. Stay so that you can hold someone's hand. Stay to see the changes that are happening all around you. Stay when your heart is full and you feel alive, but you aren't sure that those feelings are going to last. Stay to see them through. I urge you to please stay. The world needs more of you, even if you can't believe that right now. You are worthy and loved, and you deserve to take up space. So stick around a little while longer. Own your space. Use your voice. Experience life in all of its messy and broken beauty. Leave your mark on this world by being around to impact it, no matter how small you feel your impact may be. You will be okay. Maybe not today, or even tomorrow. But if you choose to stay, then you get to see firsthand the incredible strength, power, and bravery that you possess. You, my dear, are a brave one. So stay. See you tomorrow. Love, the me that makes it. Leaving often feels like the safer choice. It would mean relief, finality, and an ending to a story that I never wanted to own. It is vital, when those thoughts feel all encompassing, to have reminders to stay, to remember what it is that I show up for, no matter how ridiculous or silly it might seem to someone on the outside. My reasons to stay may look different than yours, and that's okay. Create your own reasons. Keep them close and access them when you believe that leaving sounds more appealing than staying. As my therapist once told me, the world would take a hit if you weren't here, because you are inherently worthy. We are worthy, just the way that we are, and the world needs us, even if we can't believe it just yet. So, stick around a little while longer. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next brave storyteller, Sarah Hunter.
I am Sarah. I'm 22 years old. I am a student at Seminole State College, and I'm smart despite the stigma of my illness. I am an artist, a musician, a writer, and despite the challenges I do face, I am a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, a friend to many, and an advocate for mental health. My life's journey with mental health has always been a variation of darks and lights, like a watercolor painting. There were good times, bright reds, greens, blues, my happy childhood of being in a loving family, my proudest moments of graduating despite the odds, and finding inner strength along the way. There were tragic times, deep blacks, crimson reds, and empty whites, being so severely depressed and lost in middle school, growing up being judged for being seen as weak and having to come to terms with my own diagnosis, and self-harming and cutting and choking because it was nearly impossible to handle the hatred from others and myself. I went through hospitalizations, misdiagnosis, non-compassionate doctors, and endless amounts of talk therapists and medications. All these are common things someone with mental health will go through, but that doesn't make it easy or painless. Thankfully, later on, I realized I was not alone in my struggles. That made an amazing impact on my life. About 7 years ago, I also experienced a relapse from ending treatment altogether at one point. I chose to stop my treatment because I felt no one person or pill was truly helping me handle or get through what I had been experiencing. I had hallucinations I couldn't verbalize, stress levels of being bullied and constantly dealing with my anxiety, and it was at its worst it had ever been. I tried no plan and no doctor for about 8 months. I was crashing down from no treatment, and brief moments of clarity and calmness felt like a quick breath of fresh air before being dragged into the water again. My problems all felt like an endless ocean I could never escape. But after being hospitalized, we found my true diagnosis: schizoaffective disorder, and that led us down a clearer path, but not an easy one. Little did I know back then that one day I'd be stable and so much better than, I would be so much better and every step would be worth it. However, I wouldn't change anything I went through, because each one of those pieces of happiness or hurt in my life made me who I am. And through my journals, I remember each event. I now see how I grew from it and see how far I've come. I also realize now, looking back, how difficult things were and how I had to fight through them. But like the painter I am, I used every color to tell the story of me. Like the writer I am, I mercilessly filled the page and wrote every word, even when it hurt. Like the fighter I am, I never gave up. And like the compassionate person I am, I long to change the lives of others through NAMI and their Ending the Silence program. After all this pain and progress I've made, I'd like to share with you a poem of mine in hopes that this will reach someone's ears with a message I myself wanted to hear at a young age. Maybe then a change of positivity can take place. I've walked in dark places where I've barely found the light. I've seen glorious days, but I've had to win the fight. My mental health is a battle, but it's part of who I am. It's taught me to have compassion in a language most don't understand. The message of hope is often a story untold, but I will say it among the people who say it too. Our voice is a powerful echo as we stand up strong. With this feeling, we all truly belong, and we'll stay to live another day. Our journey is a beautiful painting. We just need the courage to color outside the lines. Because pretending to be fine is no longer what I will say. Only with honesty will we learn to be okay. With one message, the world will be a better place, and with our words, we'll give hope a better face. And with all our lasting, thriving hope we've created, this is my brave. And next, welcome up Cory Mackanight.
Respect and value everyone in your place. See, this is a song about me. If you only knew, I mixed up my words, I turned it into one. It's really not that fun. The voices that I hear, it's very clear. I wish it all would disappear. Some days up, some days down. Schizopolar oppression wearing a frown. I want schizopolar oppression. Getting better, gonna stand my ground. I don't always feel the best. Is this my test? To be put down, about to win ground. Going higher, catching the fire of the eternal light. Got a lot on my plate, gained a lot of weight. Taking meds, this was my dread. What's really going to work? This is all so new. A time for a change and a time to rearrange. Be so great they will see. Won't be able to stop me. Float like a butterfly, sing like a schizopolar oppression part of me. I want schizopolar oppression. Schizopolar oppression. I want schizopolar oppression. Take me down. and scary things. Would you believe the things I've seen? Goosebumps, hair-raising experience, getting rid of stigma. I'm not delirious, never really wanted to accept this reality, never really wanted to accept this. Now on this journey, never really wanted to accept this. Been 17 years, never really wanted to accept this. Before my mama died, never really wanted to accept this. Some things that are clear, never really wanted to accept this. Turn my world upside down, never really wanted to accept this. Not where I want to be, never really wanted to accept this. Schizopolar oppression, I have to accept this. Schizopolar oppression, I have to accept this. I'm truly free, yeah. I won't let you take me down. Schizopolar oppression, I won't let you take me down. Schizopolar oppression, schizopolar oppression. Introducing our next brave storyteller, Amanda Vaux.
I don't know how I'm supposed to go after that, but here I am. So I don't want to talk about it anymore. I sit down and try to write about it, and I feel gross. I don't want to talk about losing my mom. I don't want to talk about the depression or the panic or anxiety attacks. I don't want to sit in those moments anymore. I don't want to think about those times in the same way I did then. I don't want to write about those times over and over again in the same way. I don't want to carry them in the same way as I did then. I can't. I can't talk about them in the same way anymore because it feels like a step back, because I don't really feel the same way about them anymore. I am experiencing all of those things, but just in a different way now. That's what my counselor would call progress. I feel different. I am different. And each year I became different. Each year I grew and healed and changed. I don't feel as hopeless as I did then. I don't feel as lost. I don't feel as embarrassed by OCD or anxiety or the fact that sometimes I just feel down. I still have days, though, where I don't feel very strong at all. Days where the anxiety has built up so much that I feel like I need to just go to bed, cuddle with cute stuffed animals, and watch Hallmark movies. But when I feel that way, I try to remind myself that it's okay to initiate self-care. I try to remind myself that it's okay if I do need to go to bed, cuddle cute stuffed animals, and watch a ton of Hallmark movies. I can't always be strong. No one really can. But now, I also try to challenge myself. When I feel like things are heavy and hard, I ask myself, do I need to go to bed? Or can I sit in the living room, watch TV, talk to my sister, and try to paint cute little paintings? I try to ask myself, what would be good for me? Am I giving in to the anxiety, or am I practicing self-care? OCD, anxiety, panic, depression, and fear, they are all part of me. Unfortunately, that's just the truth. But what I know now is that that's okay. It's okay that those things are part of me, because I know now they don't have to be all of me. They don't have to have all the control over me. They don't have to stop me. It will be hard to fight them, but hey, I've been doing it for a while now. I am not only different in who I am different in the way I am. Anxiety and OCD, they gave me something. They gave me years of torture, that is very true, but they also gave me something else too. The constant overthinking about every little thing gave me great attention to detail, and I am fantastic at my job now. I just have to find a way to use that attention to detail to make me feel good, to do good, to fulfill me. I can also relate to people. I can understand how hard it is to deal with anxiety, to fight anxiety. I can listen to your stories and I can give you my perspective and my strategies. I can self-reflect and I can encourage others to ask for help. I can describe to you what happens in a typical counselor meeting and help you prepare for your own so you feel more at ease. I can encourage you to see that you are more than your mental health. We are all more than our mental health. We are all more than the labels that get applied to us. But we can also be thankful for those labels because being labeled can mean that someone can help us. Recently, I talked to a group of 5th grade students about the art performance series I created a few years ago called Welcome to Anxiety. And I talked to them about mental health. I asked them to draw or write about a time that they experienced anxiety. And this group of 5th graders created honest, moving pieces of art. Then I asked them to share the art with the class. To my surprise, basically every student wanted to share theirs. Students stood in front of the class and shared their anxieties, from a fear of clowns, to the anxiety of being the new kid in class, to the fear about their parents' well-being and health. I was moved by this vulnerability these kids showed at one of the most awkward times in their adolescence. I created a space for them, as I attempt to do with Welcome to Anxiety, where they could talk about the things that make them anxious and their experiences with mental health. I was able to do that because I once needed an outlet for my own mental health and to process the loss of my mother. Thus, Welcome to Anxiety was born. My counselor asked me why I might be afraid of getting better. And I told her it was because I had had anxiety and OCD for a really long time, for longer than I had my mother. I had them when I had my mother. And now the memories of my mother are fading. And OCD and anxiety feel like my only connection to her now. And getting better means losing that connection. Since that was a negative statement, my counselor asked me to come up with a positive. I said, maybe getting better can mean honoring my mother. And this is all part of why I don't want to talk about it in the same way anymore. I want to talk about where I am now. My experiences are part of who I am, as our experiences are all part of who we are. I want to share mine with you, but I just don't want to talk about it in the same way as I did before. I don't want to talk about it from the perspective of 14-year-old me. I want to talk about it in the way I feel it now. Some days are hard. Some days the anxiety is so strong and I get mean and sad and scared and I need a hug. Some days I see my anxiety and I tell it, I don't have time for you today. So yes, anxiety, OCD, fear, panic, and depression are part of me, and they have played a part in who I am, but they are not who I am. I want to get to the point where they are just quiet, little, well-behaved characteristics that are part of me but don't define me, like my dimples or the fact that I blush really easily. They all tell stories, but I am the loudest. I want to control them, and I want the power. I want you to know that I felt anxiety and OCD so strongly that I would spend hours crying, and I didn't know what to do, and I felt so hopeless and lost, and like those were the only things I was ever going to feel. I want you to know that I lost my mom to cancer when I was 14. I became an orphan, and I had to grow up fast. I want you to know that I froze when my mom passed away, and I didn't progress like a normal teenager or even person. I want you to know that anxiety and its friends really affected me, and still do, but I don't want to talk about it from the perspective of the past, which is such a huge achievement for me and would make my counselor very proud. I want to talk to you about it now, after years of counseling and maturing and growing and building myself up. I want to talk to you about it from this perspective, and from the moments that I do feel strong, because I don't want you to feel like you will never feel strong. I also don't want to confuse my own mind into thinking I need to still feel the way I did when things were really bad, because I spent a really long time trying to convince myself to stop doing that. I want to be able to talk about it, reflect on it, but not fall back into it. I want to keep getting stronger and feeling better and making myself proud. I want to honor my mother. Thank you. So our next performer is Withelm Petit.
Today, Mom had a rough day. I picked up Amy from after-school care before I drove to pick up Mom. Amy, she's my kid sister. She's 9 years younger than me. My mom and my stepdad got married when Amy was already 4 months old. So I watched after her through the ceremony and the reception, and I've watched after her ever since. Now, Amy's 6, and I'm 15. I don't actually have my driver's license yet, but Mom says it's just better if I drive the carpool. And Mom, she's 49. In 1 year, she'll be diagnosed with bipolar after an episode where she tells me she can hear the colors of the leaves. She also apologizes to me for everything she's put me through. And then she's institutionalized for a week. And when she gets back out, we never talk about what happened before. But today, after I park the car in the garage, Mom will go upstairs and lay down for a nap. I won't see her for hours. That's okay. Amy and I will watch the Rosie O'Donnell show. And when that's over, I can get the laundry started. The phone rings. I rush to answer it so it doesn't ring more than 2 times. I can't let Mom get disturbed by the ringer. Hello, Tarleton home. That's all their names. It's not actually my name. Sometimes I feel more like a housekeeper than a member of the family. The man on the phone asks for my mom. I'm sorry, she's out for the evening. Can I take a message? I jot down the name of the cable company and their phone number. I know that the bill is late again, but it's still connected for now. When I hang up the phone, Amy asks me to make her dinner, so I heat up some cans of chili. After dinner's over, I'll need to go through her backpack and see what homework she's got. Yesterday, her teacher sent home this note about her bad behavior during nap time. I just signed Mom's name for her. It's no big deal. I've been signing her name for years. Today's homework, her teacher wants 10 items sent back to school that start with the letter H. What? I give up after only 4, and I'm frustrated that I'm failing first grade homework. Amy sasses me about not doing it right, so I yell at her until she's crying. Then I tell her to go to bed. She stomps up the stairs, and Mom emerges from her bedroom just in time to hear Amy sobbing about how I was mean. Great, now I'm the bad guy. Mom consoles Amy and helps her in her pajamas. I stay downstairs fearing her wrath. When I hear they're reading bedtime stories, I take my backpack up to my room to start my homework. The eruption of anger never comes tonight, But my anxiety builds and hangs in the air from memories of past explosions. I get enough of my homework done to get by tomorrow, and then I pack up my books. I unzipper a small compartment of my backpack, and I take out a little green makeup case. The makeup well is empty, but that's not what I want. Hidden beneath the applicator is a razor blade in a paper sleeve. I hold it in my hand, and I let the anger build. The anger at my mom, at Amy, at my life, at God. I find a fresh patch of skin high enough on my thigh that no one at cheerleading will see. I drag a corner of the razor blade across my skin, and I watch as the droplets of blood bead up in a perfectly straight line. In this moment, I am calm and I feel peace. I've replaced the pain of my day with this pain on my skin, and I know how to soothe this pain. I keep a roll of medical tape in my purse, and I tear it to the right length and the perfect width, so it covers exactly. I blot up the first rush of blood with a tissue, and then I stick the tape on. I watch as the blood seeps through and the crimson red shows. This is how I care for myself. I put myself to bed. Mom hasn't spoken to me since we got home. I know that tomorrow will be the same. This is my mom's bipolar depression and how I learned to cope. My own mental health diagnosis came 2 years later, after my first suicide attempt and hospitalization, just before my 17th birthday. I had my school schedule cut down and went to intensive therapy and struggled to find relief from drug therapies. There were days I felt lost in spirals of shame and depression pulling me down. At 18, I was on my own. I had thick walls and astounding survival skills. But I found that these protective walls weren't so good at letting in love in my adult relationships. I reached out to 12-step groups and support programs and counselors who helped me work through my childhood pain. I have compassion for myself. There are good days and bad, more good. And when the bad days do come, I have kindness for myself. This is what happened to me. It does not define me. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Josh Magro.
My father was my role model. My father was a great man. My father was a deadbeat drug addict dad. As so frequently people hesitate to find valor in a fuck-up, yet persevering despite immense personal pain remains the product of my father's gallantry. This is the jagged foundation of a hero's trial, is it not? We watch with trepid anticipation and gasp at the underdog's dance down a precarious path, awaiting inevitable demise. Besides, we never feel more alive than when we're staring down the abyss from a tightrope we hastily tied. In sign language, the word addict is a hand positioned as a hook, embedded in one's own cheek like a caught fish. My father wielded a hook just the same, baited with temporary bliss and inevitable pain, lured by the poisonous kiss of a toxic temptress, sleeping away his days in a soul-sucking tryst with the succubus. He never said it directly. Cocaine, crack, coke, blow, let's go party, but he never fucking said it. It remained an elusive stuff. Stuff was what needed to be picked up from the store when my sister and I couldn't tag along. Stuff was why my family moved 5 times before junior high. Stuff kept my mother crying at the dinner table. Stuff kept me meeting new family members frequently. That's your uncle and that's your cousin. And that man who's looking a bit too longingly in your sister's direction, well, he's just stopping by. This perpetual sleight of hand is how I learned to read people. Often in the dead of night, I awoke to the storm of my parents raging. The old wooden house quaked as my father punctured the walls with his fists. The front door thundered and tires screamed as they ripped at the road beneath. The subsiding of the squall replaced by my mother sobbing at the dinner table. Barely able to breathe, yet desperately trying to sieve air through the lit Marlboro Red 100 in hand, puffing fumes eagerly through broken teeth. Plumes of noxious smoke stifled out the kitchen light. Promise me you'll never leave me, she said, sniffling, as if recovering from some permanent cold. In the absence of my father, I learned codependency. And over the years, I watched my father transform into a shell of a man. Scarred knuckles and bruises are nothing. I watched my father's eye sockets darken. I watched his face reveal cheekbones, watched his body grow slender and wiry, old beyond its years. Pain and trauma had eaten the goodness from within him, losing battles inside of his own mind. From this, I learned the cost of self-hatred. When sobriety occasionally stopped by, my father metamorphosed into this bright-eyed, jovial guy. Sitting on the porch side by side, we'd watch lightning scatter across a Florida summer sky. He'd talk endlessly as if he'd been saving his words for years. He'd make lofty promises I ate up eagerly. Don't you worry about me this time. You kids are all I have. I'm not going to screw up my life this time. Big things are coming from my way. I can feel it this time. I encouraged him with profuse nodding, thinking this is that moment that the tragic hero comes back from near defeat for a more dramatic victory. I allowed myself to hope, thinking I was his inspiration. This is how I learned to see the best in others beyond their flaws. That concept remained with me, that I had some focal role in my father's life. I called him habitually. I had a responsibility to keep him from wandering too far with temptations and chemical happiness. You say enabling, I say I finally had purpose. In the absence of my caretakers, I perfected caretaking. My father taught me success by showing me how easily one can succumb to the throes of loss. He served as my tragic hero, the fallen angel painfully climbing out of the mud, realizing the price of free will and the dangers of flying so high with fake wings. He allowed me to watch as he marched through the minefield, and in doing so, he paved me a path with his swan dance. This is but a glance at a handful of battles among a lifetime of being emotionally impaled. My father's war-torn heart adorns scars for which I may never truly know the tale. My compassion for this man remains bigger than any pain I could ever relive. Because my father taught me the greatest lesson of all, I learned to forgive. I'd like to introduce our next very brave storyteller, Nancy Rosado.
Give me a second to set up my cheat sheets. I'm not as young as these two. Kind of impressive the way they do that without looking, right? As a member of the board of NAMI, I want to thank all of you, give you my personal thanks for coming out tonight in support of us. This really means a lot to everyone here up on the stage and to our organization. I saw some of you looking at your programs, and you looked at our profiles, and in all that you saw in mine, there was something that was not said, and that's that there's a DVD player in my head. Don't look at me that way. I'm not crazy. There really is a DVD player inside of my head. I have no control over it. It randomly plays whenever it wants to. Plays bits and pieces of a movie. My movie. My unique experience of an event processed through my training as a mental health professional, processed through my training as a police officer, processed by my emotions. There's a DVD player in my head, and I know the exact day it got in there. While I was busy directing traffic and directing civilians and trying to keep the men and women that were under my care, under my charge, safe. While looking up at a fire I could do nothing about, while watching other men and women make the last decision of their lives and the last sound that they would ever make. While looking in people's eyes and seeing the fear there and not being able to lend them support and give them a hug. While sitting there with all this training and all of this equipment, looking for the opportunity to use it and never finding it. There's a DVD player in my head, and it recorded everything that happened to me and everything I saw on September 11th, 2001. And now it plays bits and parts of that day while keeping other parts, the parts I want to remember, away from me. There's a DVD player in my head, and in the months after September 11th, it would randomly hit play and make me freeze while it showed me the volume of things that I picked up and touched and carried that no human being should ever have to pick up, touch, or carry. It would randomly hit play first thing in the morning when I opened my eyes, or when I got stuck at a red light that took too long, or when I drove by a construction site where they were taking down a building, or when I heard sirens, or when I walked into the meat section of a supermarket, or when I smelled smoke. No barbecues for me that summer. There's a DVD player in my head, and in the years after September 11th, it didn't play as frequently as it once did. Because you see, I took the time to rescue me because I couldn't rescue them. Because I couldn't rescue that one extra person that would have made a difference in the life of my brother Aaron. And in the days after, it haunted me. But I kept learning more and more to take control, to not let it have its way. And now, when it does play, I no longer care if when I'm speaking in public the tears come rolling down my face. As it plays a movie, the movie that's playing in my head right now, and changes the cadence of my speech to something a little quicker because I got to get the words out before it overpowers what I'm trying to tell you, before it makes me forget my next line. I accept all of this as mine. I accept that I could not catch them. I accept that I could not stop 2 buildings from falling down. I accept that I could only do what I did. There's a DVD player in my head. And today, 16 years later, it still has a will of its own. Tying my experiences of then to my experiences today. And even you, any one of you, can accidentally get it to play. But I no longer freeze. You see, I grew to understand over the years that those are my memories that plays back. That my memories of that day are worthy of being remembered. That I own these memories, but they don't own me. And that we must never forget what happened that day. And we must never forget the impact that a day like that has on anyone who was a first responder or was there. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother Aaron.
Every morning that I can get out of bed, shower, eat breakfast, and go to work is a victory. It is the product of my first battle against myself. I now win most of the time, and it has taught me that I can overcome anything the day throws at me because I have overcome my most dangerous opponent, myself. These battles form the backbone of my bipolar depression. Whether they're manic or depressive in nature, I have been apart since I can remember. Unable to be normal, I stuttered through my childhood, holding massive amounts of guilt at my failures. Even now that I know that the diagnosis that was so long in coming answers many of these questions, the awkwardness, the rashness, the depression, and the failures, I still have worn that self-deprecating cloak of failure. And I still put it on out of habit often, but only sometimes now do I revel in it. I stumbled through my interpreted failure at life and hurt many who I loved and who loved me. I had nothing to lean on other than my inability to conform, so I tried harder and harder. And then the planes hit the towers on 9/11, and I watched my father die, though I didn't know that at the time. In the future me, I always thought of him as the falling man, and still do in my dark dreams, even though I know now know through accounts of his coworkers that he was a hero on that day. He ushered out most of his office. And he and only a couple others on his floor died that day. I have the incredible privilege of standing on this stage with Nancy, and I wanted to say thank you very much for working so hard to save my father. I went into action when I flew to see my family after 9/11. I looked for him. I made posters. I left my job to tend his family and put his affairs in order. I was successful in making sure everyone had everything they need except for me. I had no needs. Once the memorial service was done, death certificates filed, insurance claimed, and families settled, I looked into the mirror and I crashed. For the first time, I was too weak to refuse help, and due to the tragedy, there was a huge amount of help available, and the Red Cross was there for me. I was lucky. I was diagnosed, I was given counseling. I still failed to buy into what it meant to be mentally ill, and as such, it was years before I truly embraced my disease and the PTSD from 9/11. Even though I still battle every day, I know my attacker now. I can only be the best me that I can be today, obviously, and the past is unchanging. However, I have started learning that what you do today can remediate and help soothe the past. I have a long list of people that, regardless of the reason I hurt, that's been the towering elephant in the room for me. Other diseases strike and they cause havoc within a person. My disease strikes And the havoc not only hits me, it causes huge collateral damage. I am a cluster bomb, and there are craters that I must really try to fill in. I am a man, I am a provider, I am strong, I am not mentally ill, I will conform, I will succeed as I am expected to, I will not fail, I will not be weak. That was my mantra, and still is at times. Men in my middle age group account for a largely silent population at risk of mental illness and suicide. We are reluctant to seek help. We tend to lack a developed social network, and we are really good at succeeding at suicide. I had not heard a voice like mine, and I am scared to offer my voice now, as it is a public confirmation of my disease. And though I know I should not feel shame, I still do. But for the first time, my desire to help has overcome my fear. I hope I can help someone by them hearing my story. I know that it has helped me to say it. This is my brave. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Linda Winters.
Thank you. I have dealt most of my life with what they're now calling smiling depression, which is where you pretend to the world and make a face that everything is right and everything is wonderful, while inside you're fighting the demons of worthlessness and sadness. I first attempted suicide when I was in middle school, and I've struggled with the thoughts of worthlessness and all that since then. This is a poem I wrote about depression. Well, I wake up some mornings so sad I cannot even seem to move. If I said what I was thinking, I know no one would approve. The voices are arguing again in my head, telling me that I would be better off dead. I feel like I am in a deep, dark hole. The loneliness and despair just swallow my soul. I bury my head and cry myself to sleep. When I wake again, the darkness is just as deep. Sometimes I am so exhausted from putting on this act. I would like to just find some place to lie down and never move again. That's a fact. I can't remember a time when the world wasn't black as night. I tried to end it, but couldn't even do that right. It takes all my strength and energy to get through each minute. Depression is really no fun when you're in it. Sometimes all I can do is take a deep breath and hang on tight. Getting through a minute seems to take all my might. I feel like I can't go on anymore. It takes all my strength just to get through the door. I've always felt I am not quite enough. To face the world is really quite tough. I smile and act as if nothing is wrong. It's all part of being what people call strong. Inside, I am a small, frightened soul, doing what I must in order to remain whole. I'm tired of being tired, unable to function or cope. I search and can find no ray of hope. To the world, I project the face of a lion. Inside, I have to force myself to keep on trying. I look forward to days I can get through with ease, though most of them seem to put me on my knees. Some days are so filled with gloom, it takes all my energy to just leave the room. And so I hold on and pray for the day these terrible thoughts and feelings will all fade away. I hold on tight to dreams of a future as yet unknown, where things will be brighter and I won't be all alone. I remind myself that depression lies all the time to me. Things are not as bad or hopeless as they seem to be. So I get up and try once more, forcing myself to go out the door. Things that used to send me into a deep pit of despair now most times don't even last long enough to get me out of my chair. I've learned to look at the bigger scene. On all the little details, I am no longer so keen. I savor any small thing I can find and try to banish sorrow from my mind. And I do things like appear on this stage, waiting for a day when happiness is more prevalent and smiles are all the rage. Helping others empowers me until from this darkness I am finally free. I fight to be courageous and brave and no longer hear the voices yell and rave, working to overcome the stigma and fear so there is hope of a brighter year. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce our next performer, Logan Heinzelmann.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to support this cause. It's really great that you're doing that. My sister Jody suffered with mental illness most of her life until sadly she ended it by suicide at age 47. And she was a beautiful person inside and out. And she loved people and especially loved animals. And I was with her the day before she died, and she looked into my eyes and said, "I don't want to be here anymore." She said, "I'm holding on for life. And this morning was so bright. I'm glad I saw you tonight." She said, "Been way too long in the night. Been way too wrong to turn right. And it's hard to see the black and white." She said, 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 yeah. Gonna fly to the moon, been calling out my name. Circle the stars till I figure out their game. Gonna lay on the clouds and ride down the rain. All right, all right. All right, all right. Well, one thing I've learned from my sister and all those of us with mental illnesses is that it's not all bad. You know, it's not all suffering. There are good days, there's bad days, there's good weeks, and there's bad weeks. And those of us dealing with mental illness are so incredibly strong, very beautiful, and amazingly brave. So we must never forget we are all shining stars. How can I tell you how beautiful you are? You're a Mona Lisa painting, a thoroughbred racing. You're a diamond a shining star. Don't listen to yourself, that you're worthless in any way. Don't pay attention to what others think and say. You are beautiful as you are. You have a very special heart. Yes, you are a shining star. Now I would like to introduce you to Amelia Joubert.
Dear younger me before my diagnosis, you're not stupid, crazy, or worthless. You've been dealt a bad hand, but I promise it doesn't make you weak or dumb like you feel you are. There's some things at play that you don't know about yet. There's a reason that you don't remember class yesterday, that you have a test today you don't even remember being talked about before. Not everyone has these gaps in memory that are anywhere from a few minutes to a few days. There's a reason that you don't remember much of anything before middle school, or that when people call your name, it doesn't feel quite right. There's a reason that you flinch at loud noises. You suddenly feel like you can't breathe and you want to dive under tables and into corners. This is not something that everyone deals with and no one talks about. I know you think it is, but it isn't. I know you feel like you've been really bad at handling life, but the truth is, life has been bad at handling you. It didn't handle you with care, and you deserve to have been handled with care, love, and compassion. When a child has to deal with and go through the things you did, it's no surprise that they don't come out healthy. So please know that you're not to blame, no matter how people make you feel. You're trying your best. I know that now, and I wish I knew that then. The things that happened to you are not your fault, and I know right now you don't even remember these things, but please keep this in mind for when you do. You did nothing wrong. You survived some very painful things, and it left some scars on your brain. Oh, and please put down the blade, because it becomes an addiction, and years later you won't like the scars on your leg. And put down the bottle, because you're way too young to be getting drunk at all, let alone on a regular basis. You may not know what you're avoiding yet, but you are drinking and cutting to avoid the pain. Pick up a pen and start writing. When the world feels overwhelming and you feel like you're ready to give up, just write it out because it helps, I promise. Some things are going to happen that will land you in a treatment facility, then another one, then a long-term one, then a short-term one after that. I want you to remember that going to these places doesn't make you a failure. It just means that you all needed a little help staying safe. And I say you all because, again, you're not crazy. You have a disorder that comes from trauma. And I know at this point you feel like something happened and you can't remember exactly what. That's because in order to keep us safe, our mind kept parts of our identity separate, and that doesn't make us weak or broken, but rather survivors. When you finally start to have some clear memories of the things that happened, you will be in a safe place, so don't worry about that. I'll tell you now, it will hurt. You will feel so sad and so broken, but the pain won't stay that intense. It'll take a long time to accept and admit that you went through the things you did. In fact, to this day, parts of us still haven't, and that's okay. It's okay because We're working towards healing, and though it may be a slow process with lots of ups and downs, we're still on that road, and that's what matters. There are some things that you will not be able to do because of your mental illnesses, at least not when you want to. This is not me putting you down, but rather expressing the reality of our situation. Today, I can still not drive because I can't do it safely and calmly. It's going to be hard feeling like you don't have all the freedoms and abilities of those around you. Try to focus on what you can do, because there's a lot you can and will do. Turn the pain and frustration into motivation. Work to educate, destigmatize, and help others, because I promise you will find so much joy in it. You may not be able to do everything quote unquote normal people can do, but you will do some very important things. Things that will change lives, your own and others. Even today, we have a long way to go. Still have a lot of trauma processing and work in therapy. You will have slip-ups, and so will your other identities, but that doesn't make us failures. It means that we're working to recover. I wish I could hug you right now, because I know how confused and alone you feel. But never forget you are strong, and I love you. Sincerely, future you. When I was 15, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. When I got my DID diagnosis, things finally made sense. Then they got harder. I didn't want to accept the trauma I had in my past. I wanted so bad to escape that I attempted suicide, which landed me in a residential treatment facility. It was hard being there, but it was what I needed to stay safe. In that facility is where I finally started to have some clear memories of the trauma that I went through and actually began to accept my DID diagnosis. All the parts of me finally began to get to know one another. We found ways to use each of our skills to our advantage. A few years later, at 18, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. This explained the desperate attempts to avoid my trauma, my hypervigilance, and a few other things. I am now diagnosed with DID, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I have found my passion is to educate people about DID and mental illness through my work with the National Alliance on Mental Illness and through my YouTube channel. There are a lot of things I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. In fact, this letter started as a therapeutic exercise, and it definitely was. I may not be able to go back and tell my younger self the things I say in this letter, but that doesn't mean I can't tell them to myself now. All parts of myself, and this is my brave. And now I'd like to introduce Johnny Crowder.
Hello, my sweet friends. We're out of tissues now, so don't cry anymore after Logan's songs. Just hold it together for 10 more minutes, and you'll be fine. So my name is Johnny. Hi. 9 years ago, after countless unsuccessful attempts, my mother finally managed to drag me into a therapist's office. And I fought her every step of the way. Did I hear voices? Did I hallucinate? Was I delusional? Did I count my steps, avoid cracks in the sidewalk, carry hand sanitizer with me everywhere I went, on a belt loop thing, and crank out excuses for fist bumping people instead of shaking hands? The voices in my head would say, no, you're fine. Keep going on this path. You're crushing it. You're really good. But looking back, all of those things were true. And I can look back and answer this question honestly. Did I want to kill myself morning till night, day in and day out, with every fiber of my being? So the doctor sat me down and handed me a laundry list of diagnoses, a mile long. It was like the whole alphabet. And I stared at the floor as he tried to give me the whole, you're pretty jacked up, dude, but we can help speech. But I was way too busy trying to make sense of what I was being told. Schizophrenia? Are you serious? Don't those people get locked up for life? And aren't bipolar folks the ones bashing their heads through windows and yelling at 7-Eleven cashiers because they're out of Black and Milds? That's not me, is it? I don't need to wear a straitjacket, do I? I felt doomed. I felt helpless. So helpless that all I could do was allow healthy people with diplomas on their walls pump me full of medicine until I was too bloated to roll out of bed. And I trusted them to an extent, but there was a part of me that needed to know more. So I pursued a degree in psychology, dead set on learning more about what was really wrong with me. And I learned a few things. Depression, yeah, that's a real thing, like scientifically with neurotransmitters and all of that junk. It's measurable. It's not just some sad girl sitting on a couch double fisting Ben and Jerry's because her boyfriend dumped her. And schizophrenia, it's not just some drunk homeless dude whispering sweet nothings into the ear of his invisible roommate. And bipolar, yeah, mood swings aren't just for steroid users and pubescent teens. And OCD isn't just a plot point in the TV show Monk, although I used to watch it like every day. It's not as simple as we as a people have made it out to be over years and years of generalization, and it affects a far greater percentage of the human population than we like to acknowledge. Donna said 20%, 1 in 5, that's unreal. And whether we realize it or not, and most of the time we don't, we're conditioned from birth to understand certain things in like a skewed, inaccurate, yet universally accepted light. So aliens want to probe us. Ooh, hot dogs are an acceptable entree. College is mandatory to achieve success in any field, and the list goes on. Our cultural norms teach us from our unwitting and impressionable youth into our adulthood, where we then pass on our practices to our children, what and how and why to think. Let me describe the prevailing image of a mentally ill character in any form of media, TV, movie, magazine, novel. Disheveled, frantic, unkempt, with a thin line separating their instability from full-blown psychosis. And we hear the news about murderers and rapists pleading insanity to escape the charges of heinous crimes. And the social stigma associated with any psychological disorder is so debilitating that we are systematically scared into suppressing them altogether. We hide them from the view of others to rescue ourselves from insensitivity, judgment, and discrimination. And people shouldn't have to admit that they're depressed, because an admission implies fault or wrongdoing. And as a community, we wouldn't feel so ashamed about speaking openly about our own mental health if the assumption of our society didn't associate the whole subject matter with lesser intelligence, sloth, violence, and a slew of other negative images. Contrary to popular belief, the people you see as sick are among the strongest humans alive. So yeah, I've got a few screws loose. I'll be the first to say it. But in spite of everything you just learned about me and the conclusions your brain automatically drew, I'm great with children. I hold the door open for the person behind me. I say yes, sir, and no, ma'am. I am a person. Surprise. Is it possible that some things are more difficult for me to deal with considering what's going on mentally, like finding a parking spot at this place? That is possible that it is harder for me, but it's probably hard for you too. But no diagnosis and no label and no category and no list and no medication and no doctor has the power to pigeonhole or limit me. Because I know who I am. I just told you, I'm a person. I'm a human being, and so are you. We're routinely stereotyped to be irresponsible, untrustworthy, loopy, absent-minded, and even dangerous. But I bet if I didn't say this out loud, you wouldn't have a clue that I was any different from you or your friends or anybody else. And I'm just tired of hiding. I feel like we all are. I'm mentally ill, and I don't care if the whole world knows it. In fact, I kind of hope the whole world hears, besides like my boss and girls who I will meet, their parents and stuff like that. Like, I hope they don't find out, but I hope everybody else hears. And I guess my whole point in saying all of this is I'm not scared of labels anymore. They don't define me, and they never could. And there's nothing wrong with me or you or any of us. So thank you for listening. And I hope you're not tired of clapping because Donna is going to come up. So, like...
Amazing, wasn't it? This has just been such a wonderful journey, and I have made so many amazing new friends in this group, and so proud of them. So thank you for taking this journey with us today. Our brave cast was able to shine a light on a topic we don't talk about enough. I'd like to take a moment and ask you, our audience, to be brave with us and to please stand if you yourself have experienced a mental health disorder or love someone who has. Wow, look around. We're all in this together. We are all affected by mental illness, and simply being here today was an incredible start to building upon a movement of people who are willing to be more open and supportive to those struggling. We hope that you will think of This Is My Brave, and that you will use this experience that you've shared with us today as a way to start this conversation and keep it going. We speak our pain, we show our brave, and it helps to heal us. Each of us has a very powerful tool, our own voices. And by speaking our truth, we are showing others what it means to live brave. If you're interested in finding out about resources and the free education and support programs that NAMI Greater Orlando offers in Central Florida, please stop by our table out in the lobby. Again, I would like to thank our wonderful national sponsor for This Is My Brave, Synovian, as well as to our local sponsors who helped make this show a reality. And I want to thank you for all coming here today. You made our day. If you are joining us for the VIP reception, we will be in the art show rooms off of the rotunda. And now, one more round of applause for this amazing cast.